meeting has been duly called and posted in the time and manner required by law. Do we have any members of the public who would like to address the board regarding any of the posted board agenda items? Thank you. All right, hearing none, we will move on to item 2, academic action items. Dr. Rollo, would you provide us maybe just information on all 3, and then we'll do the motion separately, if that's okay. So
Certainly. So as you guys are aware, we normally try not to bring business items to you during meetings that are scheduled for workshops, but this is so that these people can go ahead and start teaching our children next week. So we're asking you to consider approving 3 different school district teaching permits. One is for Crystal Rivera to teach courses in CTE, Health Science and Human Services. She has worked with many local support agencies to provide community resources. She's worked in adult protective services, and we would love to have her join in our CTE courses in the health and career pathways. The second one is for Emily Ramirez to teach CTE courses in trade and industry. She's actually one of our own graduates of our welding program, and she has been welding for the past 5 years in the business. And I would love for her to come back and teach our students, especially as a former student. Grow your own. And then our third one is for Iris Green in CTE courses in business and technology. She actually has a Master of Science degree in cybersecurity and industry assurances and 3 bachelor's degree in information technology, business administration, and justice administration. And she has spent the last 5 years in network switching operations for the U.S. Army. And so we would love for her to come in and work with our kids in business and technology.
Nice.
wow, great credentials. Trustees, any questions?
I do. I have on A and B. On both of these, do any of these have credentials or vocational certifications?
They have some industry certifications, but they
Right.
are not certified as teachers.
Right,
That's why
right.
we're
But as
using-
perfect.
That's why we're using the DOI process.
Perfect.
Yes.
Thank
Amy
you.
Baker has vetted all 3 to make sure they have the appropriate industry certification to teach the courses.
Sounds good. Thanks, Kathy.
Any other questions? All right, we'll take these motions separately. So do I have a motion to approve issuing a school district teaching permit to Crystal Rivera to teach CTE courses in health science and human services as certified by the superintendent?
So moved.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Okay, do I have a motion to approve issuing a school district teaching permit to Emily Ramirez to teach CTE courses in trade and industry as certified by the superintendent?
So moved.
Thank you. Lots of motions and seconds. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. And finally, do I have a motion to approve issuing a school district teaching permit to Iris Green to teach CTE courses in business and technology as certified by the superintendent?
So moved.
Second. Thank you. Motion second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. That's our business portion. So nice and easy. So we're going to move on to our workshop, and we will begin with Misty Reber. Please lead us through our first one. Misty.
Great, thank you. Good morning. And Max Flores and Christy Gillespie are going to be, we're going to be a combo team to share with you some information about secondary scheduling and staffing timelines. We're going to take a look back and talk to you about what we did last year around this, and then we're also going to look forward and talk about some things that we're going to do to update some timelines, some pieces in order to make sure that we're meeting the needs of our campuses, and then also an opportunity to hear from the field, one of our experts to share what they did at Cavazos and how they use some of the programmings to really make it work effectively. So when we talk about why scheduling matters in the first place, and we're talking about building a master schedule for a secondary campus, so a middle school or a high school, and you're trying to build a master schedule for kids. And if you have been around in this business for any amount of time, the board looks very fancy. In the beginning world, this was done on Post-it notes on a wall that you covered up with a sheet so people couldn't come in and see when their conference period was going to be. We have modernized over time and moved to Excel spreadsheets and all types of things, but we've never been able to do scheduling that was dynamic. It took a human actually manipulating and moving tiles or moving the pieces around to make decisions. And each time you made that move, that dominoed to 20 other moves that then had kids that didn't have the right schedule, and so it made for lots of inefficiencies. So in the last 2 years, we've used a system called Timely. It's a piece of software program that y'all have approved. That piece of software allows you to make dynamic changes. And I won't steal Christy's thunder to let her talk to you about how many different schedules she potentially created. But the beauty of that is that a campus can make multiple schedules, and then they can evaluate for efficiencies or inefficiencies. And that's both for kids and for teacher loads. And when we talk about inefficiencies for teacher loads, what we're talking about, am I teaching the same number of kids roughly that Rick is teaching? So if I'm teaching 150 kids and Rick is teaching 30 kids, that's an inefficiency, or vice versa. So how do we average that out to make that work across time? And how do we make it work also where as many kids get as many of their choices as what they want? That's the number one piece inside this, is that kids submit, these are the things I want to take, minus your math, science, social studies, and RLA, but what are your choices and electives? And we want to try to get them into as many electives as we can that fit inside the master schedule. So it's like a big Jenga board. So when we talk about this, scheduling matters because it saves time, money, and energy. Energy is of our staff, our administrators, trying to piece together different schedules to make it work. And if this is your mastermind, your genius, the way that you're built and you think, then it comes very easily. If it is not, then it is a very difficult task to do and can require hundreds of hours to try to get to the right schedule. And as you can imagine, the right schedule dictates in a secondary school what the year looks like. It dictates who learns, what the opportunities are, who gets to be in those classes. And we knew we needed a space to do it better. And I'm excited to share with you some of the things that we're doing because we're getting better every single year. So we created this partnership. We are part of the pilot original group in Lubbock ISD. So the company launched with us as a pilot. We were seeking a way to do schedules better. And in that conversation, we needed a tool, we needed a way to maximize student access. And then we also had inefficiencies in our schedule. Not because someone said, hey, I think it would be great if this teacher had this many kids and this teacher had this many kids. We couldn't figure out how to make it work in the schedule. So we needed help in order to do that better. So if you look at our executive summary, we have 14 schools that are using the Timely software to build their schedules, 5 high schools, 9 middle schools. It's on-demand training and coaching. So what happens is when we're going to use words like tiles, and we're going to use words like timely, and we're going to use words like pencils down. What that means in an overarching approach is you dump in all the teachers, all the kids, and all their choice requests into a piece of software. And then if you can imagine, instead of having it on a board, you start manipulating. So each time I move third period RLA over here to a different teacher, then the software program goes bloop and fixes so that everybody is in the right course. And then you have built an A master schedule. I could try a B master schedule and see if that fits better. And we do things like an optimizer where we run it and see how many kids got their choices. And our goal is that we get above 95%. We want 95% of our kids to get the choices that they want inside the schedule, and so that's what we build. You'll see, looking at the bottom, that 91% of our middle school students, their schedules were complete by May 10th. That is one of the earliest deadlines we have ever made. Typically, that date is in late July. Sometimes that date is the night before open house. And so we were really excited to get that far and advanced, and 99% of our middle school students, their core requests were fulfilled. The only students that were not able to get the requests that they're putting in are, for example, if you requested 2 electives that are only offered one time, and based upon circumstances, maybe they can only be offered at the same time, or you can't be in both of those electives. So then we counsel with parents and kids to pick the next thing. In our high schools, 72% of them were complete by May 10th. They are 100% complete today, but we still had to get ATC scheduling, some SPED scheduling, and then some hand scheduling for some unique electives that require a little bit more work in the high school. But 98% of our high school students, their core requests were fulfilled by the time we went to final pencils down and completed the program. That's the highest rate we've ever had of being able to get kids in their selected courses to make sure that we're building a schedule that works for everyone. So we're really excited about those numbers. The purpose behind this is that it helps us with the puzzle. It helps us make individualized support for kids for what they need. And then the onboarding has made it where whether this is your love language or not, you actually can be a really good scheduler. Because it's so simple, it doesn't set that up as a barrier for people who that's not their gift. So when we talk about optimization, each campus, when they complete what they think is their schedule, they run what is called an optimizer. And what the software does is it spits out and says, okay, Misty, you ran an optimizer. You have 17 kids that their schedules aren't working, and you have this one teacher that this isn't working over here. What you'll see is as they continue to run, we want the percentage to increase of students that are enrolled. If you run an additional schedule and it gets worse, that means you need to go back to a previous version and double check what you're looking at to make sure you're fitting the needs of kids. You can also see that we have some campuses that love to run the optimizer a lot. I'm not going to point any names out, Ms. Gillespie, but we're going to let her share with you why that matters and why it's important. We also have some campuses that were able to do it very quickly, and that's because some of this is as we had principal turnover or changes in the campus, they wanted to try out some new things and see if it would work, and they had that opportunity to do that as well. This is for middle schools. And so you can see that they also, we had some that ran very short and some that we needed to run more to find something that would work. One of the things I'll say is that in a smaller middle school, it is harder to make the optimizer work. You have finite numbers of teachers and you're trying to get kids with as many opportunities as you can. And so we really had to keep running with some creative ideas to see some ways that we could help kids get into the choices that they wanted. All right, I am gonna let Ms. Gillespie share with you her experience.
Well, I will start with, that is not my gift, scheduling, I don't think. And then especially just learning how that works in middle school, something that was new to me. But then I also think coming in with, and then having the year at Cavazos of knowing some things that worked, that I wanted to make sure were in the schedule. And I also didn't stop with the schedule until we had those things. And so I think we got to option G. Every time you run it, it's another letter in the alphabet. And so ours would get to like option G, and they would, our person from Timely would say, okay, if you're good with it, and she would make it the hand schedule option. And then I would schedule another Zoom call and say, can I get 15 more minutes? Like, what if we did this? And we'd run it again. And then that would become our hand schedule option. So I think it's being able to prioritize what we know we need to have in our schedule. And then the time saver of being able to run the optimizer and get a response fairly quickly allowed me to know if it was possible or if it wasn't. Because if it wasn't, then I needed to find something else that I could do. But also allowed me to be innovative with it. And if I had an idea of something or my team had an idea of something, it gave us the opportunity to try it out, to be able to do that. We really wanted to, knowing some of the changes that we were going to have to do staffing-wise, we wanted to make sure, first of all, we're maximizing our instructional time. And so being able to look at different class periods, different options for lunch, to make sure kids are in classrooms with instruction as much as possible. So, I don't know what else you.
No, you're great. You're
that good?
Yeah, that's good. We'll keep going and we'll let y'all ask. Oh, yeah,
How
do you
many
have
s-
questions?
how many
Yes,
s-
I have questions.
How many students do you have at Cavasso? Sorry, I haven't learned that number.
Approximately 400.
400, okay,
Yes.
thanks.
Did you find that to be more instrumental for you guys?
Yes, definitely. I think when, knowing how scheduling has happened in the past with having to move things around really by hand, the time saver for sure, but I can see where you would get to a point of, or if you have an idea and you don't see it working, you would just go back to what you've been doing. And I think that's one of the things that's really helped us at Cavazos is being able to look at some new ideas and having the tools and the resources to be able to help that to happen instead of getting frustrated with it and thinking, well, and all the time that it can take, not just going back to, well, let's just do what we were doing, but pushing until knowing we have this resource, being able to push until we get there instead of, I think I'm going to run out of time, I'm going to go back to what I was doing.
See, that was my point. You just mentioned it, the time saver and the
Yes.
frustration.
Yes.
You didn't need added frustration if that was the case, so
Right.
thank you for your transparency on that. Good job, thank you.
So, we think it's important, this is a little bit to show you what Christy was referencing, in her shifts that she did, and we teased her because she did have lots of schedules, but what was brilliant is her colleagues and friends used her learning experience and then duplicated some of her scheduling options because they could go in and say, well, Cavazos tried this, I could try some of the same things too. And so it's given an opportunity for people to be a little bit more creative in what they're doing. The other thing that we appreciated is the story of Mackenzie. So Nikki Beatty was hired in May to come in. She actually got access to the scheduling process 2 days before what we call pencils down. Pencils down is when we're done in this software process and we flip over to Timely. We were able to actually give her an extension. She could have had as long as she needed. But because she came in knowing what she wanted, we were able to run 7-period day versus 8-period day, 2 lunches versus 3 lunches. And Nikki, being a learner from Christy, probably had as many different schedules as she did. But we were able to do some comparisons to say which one of these gives your kids the best options, which one of these gives your kids the best opportunity to take all the classes that they want, to have access to the teacher in the schedule and make it work. And you can see based upon her numbers, she went with an 8-period, 3-lunch day because there were some things she wanted to be able to do for kids to be able to give them more opportunity, more option, and more intervention as needed to support her campus and their scores. And she was able to do that very quickly with a Zoom call that lasted about an hour and then make the switch. So it's been really neat to see that we're not boxing people in. We're able to give them some more creativity. So this is her optimizer, and you can see the 7-period, 2-lunch optimizer. When she flipped to the 8-period day, it started really low. And Christy referenced this in old times when we did this by hand, that sense of frustration, you would have said, okay, I'm done. We can't do it. Let's just go back to the old way. But what we were able to do is rebuild, recraft, rethink, and then you can see in the end, she hit a place in optimization that was higher than what we ever thought of. But it allows you to start trying to problem solve and make things happen without getting stuck. So we really appreciate that process.
And she was the assistant principal with Christy?
She was the assistant
So
principal with
before-
Christy,
okay,
yes, ma'am,
that's
and
what I
then
thought.
became the
Yeah.
principal at Mackenzie, yes, yes. So I'm gonna turn it over to Max to talk to you about budget and staffing.
Good morning, President Bridges and Board of Trustees. I will close this up here with just some highlights with the budget savings and really what it means. So the cost of Timely you see up there is $165,000, but I will say that also comes with one-on-one coaching for principals. That's very valuable to them because Christy was able to talk to that person without the HR guy in there, which is always awesome. And Timely's coaches do a very, very good job of taking their ideas and putting it down with the FTEs, the full-time employees that we've allotted to that campus, and making it work. So want to just add that in there. In 2022-23, when we kicked this off, we had 37 positions that weren't I guess they stayed vacant, and we closed them at the end of the year. No one was asked to walk away. We didn't fire anybody. We just, through attrition, we absorbed those 37 positions. That was scary. Then when 24-25, we found 47 other positions. And I know that is a lot. These are all full-time employees that are general funded positions. These do not include ESSER or title positions. But with Timely, that number's high, 47. It's a big cut, but we were also able to ensure that even with those cuts, when we looked at a schedule, there was still a 26-to-1 ratio when we allotted staffing for the campuses, and we were able to see inside their schedules to see that it would work. So, for example, if Christy was given 3 English teachers, and we get to the point where she can't staff anything but to a 40-to-1 ratio, we're obviously going to justify adding a position or moving something around to make sure that we don't have 40 kids in one classroom. And again, I think we've said here, the painting of the picture, that's what's neat about this software. You literally slide a little tile into a box and drop it, and it'll just tell you what the class size is.
Nice.
And if you've kind of gone over your ratio that was allotted.
Max,
Yes, sir.
with respect to the 37 and 22-23, and then the 47 and 24-25, what percent ballpark was related to inefficiencies within the schedule versus actual attrition of students?
Ooh.
I mean, is it strictly all inefficiencies with how we were scheduling classes, where we had 10 people in a class, or was it we lost 300 students from, Monterey, or?
Both. I think the declining really, that was hard to predict. We've predicted a lot better now, but that programming, I think there were some programs that we had that just weren't student interest anymore, and we were holding on. We tried some things like splitting teachers up between campuses, and we learned from it. So, but it was, I think it was those things that we were really trying to make sure students' requests and their wants were being met. And if we could do it, we did, and we had some efficiencies on splitting teachers and other things. But it's a combination of all.
The beauty of that, though, is that it's automatic. I mean, you don't have to manually do it anymore, and try to keep track of how many students are down in which subject area, and so that's nice that we
The
have
work
those
in progress.
efficiencies.
It is, and it's neat because I have access to their side. So if a principal were to call me, I get on their sheet and let's talk about English. Let's look at it. Where in the 2 years ago, you'd have to run the schedule. They get a little percentage on the side. Then we're talking about percentage, but we're not really even seeing what's true in there, what the conflict is. Sometimes it's at an athletic period that's only offered 5th period, or a band that's only offered 7th or 8th. So this system has really helped us out a lot in our conversations of staffing. So especially when you have 47 less. I'm sorry.
Can I ask a question too?
Sure.
Are you able to plug in parameters so you can say, I want to run this with no class larger than 26 students?
Yes.
Okay, because I know that has been, an issue in the past, so
Yeah.
that's great.
Right.
So you can set those parameters, and you know that you won't have a class larger than 26. Okay.
And if it goes, if anything, so the overall average is always there's a little ticker on the top, and that will actually highlight red or stay neutral. It'll change colors if you go over that ratio altogether, even as a whole group. So all of your classes may look like they're falling in place, but if there's a ratio
There's
issue,
an outlier. Okay.
it'll call you out on it. So.
And you can do unique too, so we've set unique parameters for the ATC, or unique, welding can't have the same number that that an English
Okay.
class can have, and so you can set unique parameters.
By class.
By class.
So it's, okay.
It's by course code.
By class,
Oh, by course.
and it's getting better. You can include inclusion students, inclusion teachers. They're adding to it because we were a pilot district. They're building it to our needs, and that's pretty neat.
I was just gonna say, so it actually alerts you if it's over that
Yes.
threshold. Okay, good.
So we saw the cost of the pilot on there, is that going to go up or down as we continue?
Yeah.
As of right now, because we are an entry-level district, the CEO has said that we will maintain our cost. Other districts that are entering do not pay that cost. They do have a higher cost, but because we were part of the pilot and they believe that we also gave a lot of our time and energy to help build the process, they are giving us that back. So I don't know for how many years,
Okay.
but for currently right now and for this next school year, that will hold true.
Any other questions?
Okay, so with this, from Rick's head nodding, I got the impression that this gave you a better picture of your staffing needs much earlier, so we can make hiring decisions a lot earlier?
Yes, so that's actually.
Next slide,
that's-
okay.
yeah,
I thought you were done.
You
Didn't
set
say
me up
any
there.
more questions. Okay, good.
No, so this being you, we've had to change our mindset a little and our dates too. I will say that we've had to push everything. We pushed everything earlier this year. We're going to push everything even a little earlier next year. So why we need to do that is that we have found that the process we were using was holding us back, and maybe that was contributing to the August hand scheduling that would happen. And if we follow this timeline, it really allows for efficiencies, hiring, staffing placements, and it really helps the HR side, to be honest with you. And so let me go through this. So student transfer window, you'll see the dates there. And as parents, what this looks like is like, why are we talking about next year already in December? We haven't even hit our winter break, but this is just something that we really need to get to first, because that office is, so all of this is student driven. And if we don't have a student interest and we don't know where students are going or what they want, I can't proceed. I'm kind of stuck on there. So Tim Andrews' office, shout out to him. They have helped, and they are key in making sure that I have numbers and I can predict the high school population in order to staff right. So that has moved up. The family transfer window, the notification, it just happens to fall on Valentine's Day, but it's February 14th. Course requests, those are due February 21st, so kids are picking a little earlier this year, but that really allows us, especially at the high school level, to see, our classes making, is this what kids want, or did we run out of that program? Does that program just run out? Staffing meetings, we are secondary, high school principals will always go first, just because of the uniqueness of their schedule. So we try to get those guys before spring break, and just to get them thinking over spring break, and middle schools come back. Surplus communication this year, I'll talk a little bit about surplus. This year we had the unique combination of running out of ESSER funding and having a lot of our employees working in ESSER funded positions, so that caused a little bump in the hiring process. So we told our employees, and we did this. We did not hand out a pink slip. We reassigned any employee that was ESSER funded. We made sure that they were still employed with Lubbock ISD, because those were really good people in those positions. So there was a good number of those folks that we had to wait. We really wanted to wait for resignations and retirements in order to allow those folks to have a first pick at what vacancies we had. What that did is just kind of it created a kind of a small little freeze of about 2 weeks of hiring, where it was like, we can't do anything. It's like, well, we really can, because we are doing something. We are making sure that our people who were in ESSER funded positions have jobs for next year. So that's unique to last year. We don't have ESSER this year, so that's helpful in speeding up that hiring process. Because I know there's great people out there that are working, and we just did not have the contract to say we can have you this year. Surplus communication, by the first week of April, anyone who is surplus, which I'm hoping we're going to be down to like 4 or 5 this next year, they'll know where they'll be for the following year. That's a lot easier than 80-something employees. Our transfer window for employees, that opens up a whole new world. That'll start on April 7th, and it'll go to the end of the school year, not the year, just the end of the school year. And hiring's always going on, and some hiring's a lot easier than others when they're singletons and unique positions. We're not waiting for someone to, like another third grade teacher. If this is a third grade physics science teacher that doesn't really exist and we find them, we are hiring them right then and there. Our athletics also, you know, if the coaching and the content area fit, we hire. We don't hold. But again, this year was unique because of the 47 positions that we were looking at, and your ESSER position. It just caused a hiring freeze storm, if you will. And I'll stop there because I ran out of bullet points, and
Bless you.
and I'll take questions if you have any.
How does this compare date-wise? How much is this backed up date-wise from our current year?
You say 2 months, or maybe some things are.
Yeah, that March 28th date is almost a month backed up. At the bottom,
Yeah.
The surplus,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's almost a month backed up, and the surplus list is almost a month backed up. So it should get us a lot sooner.
Okay. I think, you know, we've talked before about student teachers and being able to make those offers to the ones who've been on a campus, and so would this help us because, and then with adjuncts, would this help us have fewer adjuncts because we know our vacancies earlier and we can snag certified folks earlier?
Yeah, yes, the earlier you can get out there, yes, it will help us. And I think we have hired the least amount of adjuncts this year that we have
Right, you
going on through.
mentioned that, that's great.
Yeah.
But I'll, if I could just,
Yeah, there's a,
the caveat, excuse me, the caveat to that is because we're a declining enrollment district, we're not going to need potentially as many staff, excuse me, which then makes us at the mercy of those that are choosing to leave us, right? So if you take those two worlds, we're going to need fewer staff. We have to wait to decide, to find out from folks who are making the decision, I'm not coming back for whatever reason, right? I'm leaving the profession, I'm moving to the Metroplex or whatever. We don't have the luxury of a fast growth district who says, well, we're going to need more teachers, and so we're going to go ahead and roll the dice and go ahead and hire that third grade teacher because we know we're going to need them. There's a possibility we don't need them, and we don't want to overhire and get ourselves into a situation where we have too many people, and that's the caveat that I would say. Yes, we should identify how many staff we're going to need to have. That doesn't necessarily open us up to say, okay, well, now we know how many we need to hire, because that's a different, that's held by those folks that are sitting in our positions. And we don't want to get into a situation where we're having to do a
Sure.
RIF.
Oh, absolutely not. And I know that is a concern. I think we talked before about incentivizing those, and that can be another conversation for another day, but.
That is a
Anyway.
lever that we have available, that we have pulled in previous years, where we incentivize people to going ahead and turning in their
Right.
resignation or retirement letters if they know they're planning on doing so. We have done that in years past. We did not do that this year. But that is something that as we get
That's a
closer
tool.
into the spring, if we want to consider looking at that, that is something that we can do. We really didn't see a huge number take advantage of that when we've done it in the past. But that is something that we can consider. Because
Just
if
thinking
people
all
will
these
turn in their
pieces.
letters earlier, then I know we have spaces.
Exactly.
We
To
can
your
plug in
point.
surplus, we can plug in new hires. But if they hold on until the end of May to turn in their letters, then that puts us in a bind as well.
The beauty about the adjunct, though, is some of them are getting certified because that's their process if they want to stay on board, and that'll bring that adjunct number down as well, because then they'll become teachers.
Yeah, most
So,
of them
they've already
that we
done
hired
so,
as
right.
adjunct.
That's a good
That'd be a
thing.
good number.
That's a great
Yeah.
thing.
yeah, and we, it's hard to trace that number because when they do become certified teachers, they just lose the adjunct title, and
Right.
it seems that they've always been a teacher, which was our intention. So,
Sure.
but we have brought in a lot of resources, a lot of people from the alternative certification program to talk them through that process, and even added some sections at Strong Start this
Nice.
beginning of this year to make sure that they have the support they
And
need
that's
to
the goal.
get certified by the end of the
Sure.
school year.
Thanks,
So
Max.
I would like to ask Christie a question.
Sure.
If possible, at the school level.
By the way, she is an expert at scheduling.
You're the de facto expert now.
As we're talking about staffing and hiring people turning in resignations, what would the, what are the teachers saying at the, at the campus level about this program?
About using Timely?
Right.
I don't know, they don't know the specifics of, the program, and I know they've heard us use the word Timely and, what that means and how we do it. I think being able to have the master schedule, or at least the idea of it, quicker to them, sooner, is important. I was, being able to say when we ran it, here's what ended up being the best option for us was the 7 periods, 2 lunches. And so they like that. And then I also think because it was a tough year for surplus and for hiring and getting people in the right spots, it helps to be able to explain that a little bit more to them because it was a little bit sooner. I think sometimes we hold off on telling the teachers like where we are with master schedule because it can change so much and we're not confident in the result that we have. But when I knew that 7 period, 2 lunches was going to work and I knew how many teachers I needed, then I could go confidently to them and say, this is what we're going to be doing and this is how many teachers we need. And this is why we don't need the number of teachers. Now, I would love to still have the teachers that we had to surplus because they're great and I'm glad that they're going to be other places. But it helped in being able to explain that to them, for them to understand it, because I think sometimes we don't feel comfortable and confident in explaining it to the teachers because we're not as confident in it ourselves. But because I knew it was going to work, I could tell them this is the way it has to be for us this next year. So
Just wanted, just hopeful that the increased efficiency doesn't
Yes.
come at an increased workload on the teachers that are
Not for
still
the,
there.
no, I wouldn't say for the teachers at all. I think it eased the frustration and helped us to get to a end result quicker.
Because of the schedules being
Hey,
done early.
One question while you're
Yes.
there, sorry, this is all new. I know the parameter of class size, is there also a parameter about number of courses a teacher's teaching? So
Yes.
you can, okay.
Yes, so
Just
you
can-
set it up, like we did the 7 class periods, 2 lunches, and so it really gives you the teachers' names down the side, and then 1 tile for each of their class periods.
Preps. I
Yes.
guess we're, to Jason's point, the preps, so.
So how many, you can set that, I think, so that you, that's really up to, I would say, like an administrator call on, like if you have a math teacher that's gonna teach more than 1 grade level and would end up with 2 preps or 3 preps, or, whatever it ends up being, that we are able to go in and set what we want that to be.
Okay, so you can look, you have a way to view that, so you
Yes.
don't wake up.
Overload,
and-
yes.
To Jason's point, go, oh my gosh, this teacher's prepping for 4 different math
Right.
out of 7 classes. Okay.
Yeah,
Good to
we
know.
set all of that.
Any other questions? Anything else? All right. Thank you, guys. That was
Thank you,
super
very
informative.
Thank y'all.
This was
Steve,
great.
thank you,
Thanks,
Misty.
Matt,
Thank you,
Christy.
Max.
I called him Matt, and it's Max.
All right, we will transition, and then I would like to invite our chief, Ray Mendoza. Please come up and talk to us about LISD police.
In his ever-growing police department.
Yes, can't wait to hear.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So I was invited up here to talk about what's going on with our police department and also to fill in some of the new board members on some of the stuff that is required of the school-based law enforcement. First of all, I want to tell you my vision, and my vision is to be the leader in this profession. We're the largest agency as far as school-based law enforcement in West Texas, minus El Paso. And I want to be the leader. I want to be the one that everybody seeks to, that everybody comes to. And so far, we've been able to accomplish that. We are constantly being sought out by the smaller districts, and even LPD seeks us out to learn more about what we're doing here. And so this summer, we were able to train 7 different agencies who have, some of the agencies like Lynn County, they're the ones who staff their schools. And so we're the ones that they sought out for to do the training for them. And so our officers came in July on their off time and volunteered, but they got paid through the, off-duty basis, and we trained several of those agencies. And so we're moving along just great with that, and I think we're making a name for Lubbock ISD as far as in school-based law enforcement. Our missions. I'm gonna point out to this picture right here because this is what I envision when we wear so many hats as police officers. 1 minute, we're walking a kid down the hall, just intervening. In this case right here was a kid was having a crisis. Seeing for some reason the shiny badge is what attracted the kid, made him calm down, and he was able to make some rapport with him, and he's walking him down the hall back to the classroom. So 1 minute we're doing this, and the next minute we're doing, having to put handcuffs on somebody. It's a big area that we're covering there. But what I envision us is I envision this when they see us so that we have less opportunity to put handcuffs on kids. That's what we're trying to get our officers to buy into. We want to see them graduate. We want them to see them go on to college, preferably, and eventually maybe even join us in law enforcement. Our core values, of course, service. We want to be able to work with our administrators and our campus teachers. We want to be able to also foster those with the parents outside of the school. This picture that you see here is the Boots and Badges event that we participate with the Lubbock Police Department, the Lubbock Sheriff's Department. We send those officers out there. They were out there serving hamburgers, talking to the community, answering questions, also building some relationships with them. This is our current structure. Of course, there's me. I have a dispatcher and I have a secretary. And then I have 3 sergeants who oversee the operations, the daily operations on our campuses. Each one of those sergeants has 9 officers. And I'm going to go into a little further. So you can see we have, again, we have myself, 3 sergeants, and 25 officers. So a total of 29 sworn officers that we have out there every day. This right here is what we incorporated last year. We started it previously before that. However, this right here defines the lines and how we split the district up. And this right here has really probably paid the most dividends for us. Assigning a sergeant to each one of those zones and then creating what we call a squad. Those squads have taken ownership of their areas. In other words, when a call goes out and an officer's tied up with something else, that we can send this officer from that same zone and they take ownership. They respond to the calls better because previously they didn't have an area. They thought that their campus, for example, they're working at a middle school, that's what their job was. Well, when we have something going on, they now take ownership. They're quicker to respond to those deals, lowering our response times, and giving the officers a little more team unity, per se. So we're all a part of the same team, but then they got your offense, your defense, your special teams type. They take ownership in those areas. And so that's really paid the most dividends for us, is breaking up the district in those shaded areas. Sergeant Tijerina has the Zone 1, which is the yellow area. And then Sergeant Ariano has the gray area, but which is south or west of University Avenue, and then north of 50th. And then Sergeant Green has the green zone. And that was done on purpose there. But you can see those, when they have the officers and the unity that it creates when, responding to calls and taking ownership of their areas is what's been the best thing. We have less times that we have to call out for an officer. I need a unit to respond. We kept hearing that a lot, and I didn't like it. Why do we have units to respond? We should be able to send an officer. And now the dispatcher knows that she can send anybody from those areas immediately, wherever they're at. Minus the high schools, we won't ever pull an officer we'll always leave the high school covered. This is our roster. This is what we send out every morning when school starts. And it gives the officers the assignment. Sometimes we have to add or change because somebody called in sick or took a day off, then we have to adjust it. But if everybody's here, then that's what the roster looks like. All right, this is the definition. So we're often called SROs, or school resource officers. that's technically not correct. We are school-based law enforcement. And so it's a broad term because it's ever evolving. I learned that pretty quick that, you know, with all the new legislature that came out, we're changing, and it's constantly changing. So we're having to adapt and do it, but the vision and the mission stay the same. But as far as what we're having to do and what's prohibited, then those things continue to change. The only really difference is the mission is the only difference in all of it between us and regular traditional law enforcement. Again, school resource office versus school-based law enforcement. I technically started with Lubbock ISD in 1999 as what I thought was a resource officer. I was wrong, okay? A school resource officer is actually employed by the city or the sheriff's department, and their permanent assignment is the school district. And, you know, that wasn't me. I was actually working on my days off at the school as what I thought was a school resource. Well, that's incorrect. They're actually paid by the city or the county that they work for to be in the schools. They're not employed by the school district. School-based law enforcement is actually a district employee. We are commissioned I'm licensed by the Texas Commission on Law Enforcement, but I'm actually commissioned by the district. The off-duty officers that are working on the campuses are neither SBLE or SRO. They are just temporary employees working for us as armed security. House Bill 3. This has been my
Thorn in your side.
yeah. However, I mean, I get what they were trying to do, and I also understand that it's almost, you know, going to be impossible to get there. But basically, we have to have an officer on every campus or an armed person. And the security officer is described as a district police officer, a school resource officer, a commissioned peace officer employed as security, which we have 32 of those that give us a day off or here and there to work on one of our particular campuses. Or a school marshal or a school district employee or guardian, mind you, who has completed the school safety training provided by a qualified handgun instructor, certified in school safety, and carries a handgun on their person on school premises in accordance with written regulations and so forth.
And just an FYI, both options 4 and 5 would require a change in our board policy.
This is what it would look like to have an officer on every campus. Of course, this does not include that we would need additional supervisors. The span of control for a supervisor should be about 6. At 7, we're over and we're pushing the limits. Right now, you can see that we have 3 sergeants with 9 officers underneath them. We, you know, constantly have absences. We have, you know, people take days off. They have families got weddings. They need time, and so that doesn't cover that. We also have to make arrests, unfortunately. So we have to call a transport unit, and either the sergeant transports them, or we have to call an officer from another campus to come do the actual transport, so the officer can stay and write his report and do his investigation, complete the investigation. As you can know, that the aquatic center is not on there. Central office is not on there. REACH is a TEA numbered school, I believe. No, so that's why we have it on there, and of course JJAP and LCJJC. But we do cover those campuses right now. Again, what is the difference between a school marshal and a guardian? So a school marshal is a licensed and certified by TCOL, and after completing the training program, they can carry on our campuses, but they are a school employee. So there's would be an administrator, or a teacher, or somebody that we would actually choose to carry a gun and so forth. You can also get volunteers to come in and work on our campuses or volunteer on the campuses, and they're armed. And those are the guardians. The only thing is that only police officers can perform routine law enforcement duties, including making the arrest and so forth. You know, they can respond to emergencies or an armed subject. They can respond to those and detain them, but eventually we're the only ones that can make the actual arrest. There is some things about this Texas school-based law enforcement. The Texas Education Code prohibits us from writing citations on campus for violations on the campus. You know, like LPD can stop somebody for stealing a pack of gum at the, you know, Dollar General, and they can issue them citations for that. If it happens on campus, they cannot, and we cannot. So we do have some prohibitions on there as far as citations. We can issue traffic citations for traffic violations on campus. However, just because we can't write citations and so forth, there's still a student code of conduct violation and can be enforced that way. It also prohibits us from assigning officers that require as a duty a routine student discipline to perform administrative tasks not related to law enforcement. They also has an order that they can't have us to have contact with students that's not, again, law enforcement related, but that doesn't prohibit us from casual contact or informal contact with the students. We can still, hey buddy, what's up? You know, and if they want to talk to us, they can. They just can't assign us to be that person on a daily basis. The primary purpose of us, of course, is the safety of the students and staff. Delta 8. This is a big question. I'm sure you've heard of it. Delta 9 now is also out. Delta 8 is a THC product that's less than 0.03% of THC. Right now, we can't do anything about those because there's caught up in the courthouse, because it all started with this. They determined that it was going to be illegal, but it was already being made, and so they got caught up in the courthouse. You know, some people were already selling it, and so they had bought a bunch of product, and it's gonna hinder the business, so it's caught up in the legal process. It will test positive for THC, but we have no way of determining what percentage it is. Okay, so therefore we're not enforcing it. We will respond, and we will take the THC vapes that we find, or that the administrators find. We will collect them. We'll write up the appropriate crime report, but we are not arresting. And so there's a lot of things that happen with these things. So we get the vape. If it's got a lithium battery in it, the property will not take it. The Lubbock Police Department property will not take it. Then we have to destroy it. So then the case, dismisses the case. If let's just say that we were able to get the product out of the vape, if there's some way for us to figure that out, we can submit it. Again, we submit them to DPS, and then it comes back and it tells us it's not actually THC, and then they can't determine if it's hemp. They can't determine. So we're just not enforcing it. We're still going to write up, and we're going to collect it just so that nobody gets in trouble. We're going to go through the process, and we worked out with the Lubbock Police Department because we use their property room. We're just going to destroy them in a manner that's appropriate and lawful as well.
Now, there's still disciplinary consequences from the campus administration.
Yeah. All right. Any questions?
This is the best we've ever been explained in the 8 years I've been on the board through any chief to us. So I really appreciate that, the efficiency that you've come up with, the fact that you have done just that. You've mentored students beforehand. You're right, I've seen you guys wear many hats, but you've come a long way in the time that you've been here. So I appreciate everything for you and your staff. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Chief, what was the size of your team when you joined us?
We have 14 officers.
And there's 29 now?
29.
Nice.
And just as a reminder, we do have budgeted the additional positions. Hopeful that we can fill those throughout the year and years to
He's
come.
working on it.
Yeah. And we're keeping it open, the positions open. So anytime when I go through and I look at them and I see somebody who I believe is qualified and everything, then we'll call them in for an interview. But we're not going to reduce our standards. We're going to continue to hold the highest standards possible. I think this job is very, very important. I know we're not looked at by some of the public as real police officers, but we are a legitimate law enforcement agency, and we have all the arrest powers, every power that Lubbock PD has, every power that the Sheriff's Department has, we have.
I love the high standards you put up for you guys. You want to be that role model. You want to be that leader. I think that's awesome. It's good to hear, and it shows.
Chief, one other question. I've seen on the news reports that the sheriff's office and LPD have many vacant positions, and of course, with 1,200 school districts all trying to find TCOL certified police officers at the same time hasn't helped. What's the pipeline? Is it like the teaching pipeline? There's just not enough capacity? I'm just thinking, moving forward in the future, it sounds like it's probably going to be difficult to fill all those positions.
It is pretty difficult. You know, we're really working with SPAG and South Plains College. I've gone into their campuses now and kind of, you know, trying to recruit. We've started a process now where we're actually going to sponsor some of the kids that are going to SPAG. They require a sponsorship from an agency. And basically, all it's saying is that we're going to agree to mentor them. It doesn't mean that we're going to offer them a job when they're done, but I think our name is getting out there a little bit more where it needs to. You know, some of the smaller agencies around Lubbock don't pay as well, and so we're able to hire them away from them as well. But that's kind of the thing. And understand that I'm putting those high standards on the hires, and so that, you know, I get a lot of grief from some people, but at the same time, you know, I'm not willing to take the chance. I mean, I believe that these kids are important, and we need to protect them, and we need to have the highest standards available.
I've had some very recent conversations with Greg Stevens, who used to be LPD police chief, and now what is the name of the organization?
He's the director of TCOL, which is
yeah.
the governing body over the law enforcement all over Texas.
So he reached out, and there is a definite need for dispatchers across the state. And so talking with Amy Baker about the potential of adding that into our law enforcement pathway, where students can graduate with certification to become a dispatcher, and they could do that until they're old enough to go into police academy, if that's something they're interested in. But to have a job right out of high school while they do that, while they age into police academy, is something that very early conversations.
But that is great.
I think
Working
that's
on
great.
the pipeline. That's great.
Very confident to know all of that.
Good. Thank you.
Chief, do we have any SRO staffing from the city? I mean, that's pretty interesting
Yeah,
conversation.
not SROs. They do work with us, and they do give us a day off when you know, most of the guys that are off like Monday, Tuesdays, or Tuesday, Wednesdays, they'll give us 1 or 2 of their days off and come work with us. And again, they're not SROs; they're armed security, if we're going to, you know, name that right.
Yeah.
So back in 1999, I was an armed security. I wasn't not an SRO.
Our police with LPD, they do on their beats. That's their pathway that they circle throughout their time. They do stop in on campuses, but the police, LPD is not paying for police officers to be on our campuses.
And just so you know, school starting up, I always have these conversations with them. I've already talked to the deputy chiefs, the ones with the substations, and asked them to, you know, that school starting, the first day is you know, and they all agreed that they will send patrols, and by that, they're gonna drive to make themselves seen around the campus. You know, they're not gonna go onto the campus unless they need to, but they agreed to help us with, you know, some of the traffic violations, such as, you know, cell phone in the school zone, that kind of stuff.
Good.
Awesome. Anything else?
I'll add one other thing that Chief is being humble about, but y'all understand as well, you know, we have the police officers on our campuses during the day. We also, when we have night events, we have police officers that are there to protect football games, basketball games, those kinds of things. So those are all on top of what they've done all day, and the partnership and the Jenga puzzle that he has to put together in partnering with our agencies. We offer those opportunities to our people first. It's overtime for them, but if we have a lot of things going on, which is great, but we also need to cover those things, and so he does a great job of partnering with the other agencies to get those officers to come in, because sometimes you'll see the LPD or LSO, Lubbock Sheriff's Department, come in and help us to cover all of the events, because especially during the spring, it gets pretty crazy trying to cover all all of the night events. So appreciate him doing that.
Thank you, Chief. Appreciate your time. Thank you for that information. All right, an executive closed session will be held under the provisions of Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. It is 7:59 a.m. and we're adjourned to closed session.